like to call the meeting together for the Lansing Charter Commission for June 3rd, 2025. I'd ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Commissioner Adam Simon. Commissioner Anderson.
Here.
Commissioner Bauer.
Here.
Commissioner Boyd.
Here.
Commissioner Dowd. Commissioner Jeffries.
Here.
Commissioner Lopez.
Present.
Commissioner Cooey. Commissioner Washington.
Here.
There are 7 members present at quorum. Commissioners Adam Simon and Cooey are not here.
I've not received any communication. I believe they were supposed to be here, so I suspect they're running a little bit late. A motion would be in order to adopt the agenda for this evening's meeting.
So moved.
It's been moved. Is there support? Been moved and supported. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? It is adopted. Motion would also be in order for the approval of the May 20th, 2025 minutes. It's been moved and supported. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, those minutes are approved. There's also a motion in order to approve the May 27th, 2025. It's been moved. Is there support? It's been moved and supported. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, they are also approved. Public comment.
We have no one signed in for public comment at this time.
Okay. Under officers' report, if we conclude our business tonight, which I think we will, both the June 10th and 17th meetings will be canceled, and our next meeting will be June 24th. At that time, I'm going to ask our attorney to present a memo kind of giving us some directions on what we can and cannot do relative to moving forward into the community with this charter and how we do present it. And we'll also then have an update on the submittal to the governor and the AG's office. And then from there, prepare to move forward. I don't know if there's a lot we really can do until after we get the information back from the governor and the attorney general, but at that next meeting, we will have the information available, and we can create a calendar and a to-do list, whatever it's going to need to do or take to do.
Chair.
Commissioner Boyd.
So we would meet on June 24th. Do you anticipate that we would need to meet after that?
Based on our discussion, I don't, if there's going to be a need, I think as we roll this out, and this is probably going to be more after we get the information back from the AG and the governor, and we know it's going to be on the agenda, I would suspect we'd want to put some sort of program together where we can, as commissioners, be able to go out and talk to the public and maybe line up some of those speaking
Okay,
engagements.
so the only thing I need to put on my calendar right now is June 24th.
Yes.
Thank you.
That's all you had to say or ask. All right. Yes, 6:30. Okay? Yes, so there will be no June
June
10th or June 17th meeting.
June 24th.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Madam Vice Chair, do you have a report?
No report.
Mr. Clerk?
I do not have a report.
Oh, give it to us. Oh, you do have a?
I do not.
Oh, you do not? I thought you had some expenses that I saw.
Oh, no,
No? Okay.
that was last time.
Okay. All right, moving on to old business. I see that Kristen is here. We'll start out with, if we could, the memo that was prepared by our attorney. And Kristen, could you present that, please?
We have a big packet. I'm just trying to find out where it is.
That's okay.
Page 28, I believe.
28? Okay. So, page 28 or 29, the first memo in here is questions about the changes recently that the commission made regarding the internal and external auditor. Essentially, does it still make sense to keep it in Article 3, which is the legislative section? We don't think that it makes sense to keep it there, given the sort of independent nature, so then the question is, well, where does it go? The other two options where you could put it would be in Article 4, which is the executive section. Obviously, a lot of that section discusses the mayor and then the mayor's staff, but there is also a section designated for the city clerk, so that could be a section. The other alternative is to actually put it in Article 7, which is on finance, and that is actually our recommendation. We think it fits best there, given just the nature of what the internal auditor role is. And we think that's consistent with what I think the goal is of the commission in making the changes it did last week. The other thing we noted too is then, given the changes, we reviewed the charter to see if there was any sort of cleanup or any additional auditor language that maybe should be considered for reconsideration or any sort of additional change based on these changes. And we did find one section, if you look on page 30, it's section 4-102.7, which currently states that the mayor has the obligation to respond to any internal auditor report, and then the mayor makes that report response in writing to the city council. So the question we have for you is, do you think, or do you want to maintain that language as is, or make some change, which the proposed language we have in here is to have the mayor provide a response to an auditor report in writing to the city council and the internal auditor. The option is you can leave it exactly as is now, you can have it to the city council and internal auditor, or you could just have it just to the internal auditor. But those are the two matters that we saw that pertain to auditor language.
Are there any questions? So would the motion be, I think there's a couple of motions here, would it be to move the internal and external audits from Article 3, Chapter 4, Sections 3-401 through 3-404 to become Article 7, Chapter 6, Sections 7-601 through 604?
Yes.
Okay. That would be the motion. Does someone want to make that motion? Is there support for that?
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, passes. Kristen, in some of the changes that you were looking at, that you presented, you'd indicated, do we need to change the header on that new Chapter 6 to the Office of the Internal Auditor, or do we leave it internal, external audit?
So the whole section, there is still a subsection that deals with external auditor,
Yeah.
so you could say Office of Internal Auditor and External Audits, or you could leave it the same. So I think it's your preference.
Just leave it the way it is, and that'll be okay.
I think you could, yeah. And remember too, when we're talking about interpretation of charter language, the actual headers, they're for the convenience of the reader. They don't actually have any interpretation or statutory meaning.
Then, having done that, on the first page, in the middle of the page, you'd indicated that if we did make the motion and it was approved as we just did, that it would require Article 3, Chapter 5, entitled Council Staff, to be renumbered to Chapter 4, Section 3-401.
Trying to remember. Yes, it would. Yeah, just because that's, yes.
Is there a motion to do that? Anyone? It's been moved and supported. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, passes unanimously. And then is the last thing that we have to consider is on the second page, adding the internal audit and the internal auditor to 4-102.7. What is the feeling of the body in doing that? Go ahead, Commissioner.
Well, personally, Mr. Chairman, I think we should add the internal auditor because the mayor and the city council are hiring the internal auditor together, and so I think any communication should include everybody. So on that basis, I would vote to support adding the internal auditor.
Is that a motion?
Yes.
It's been moved. Is there support? It's been moved and supported. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Passes. Okay, so is that, are we, Commissioner Dowd, I'm sorry.
So I have a question, reviewing this afterward and having some conversations with some other folks. There was some concern about the language of authority of the internal auditor as it related to the ability to subpoena people, and that should be left to the council to subpoena and not the internal auditor, as well as having access to human resource files and those types of things, like more of a financial audit versus allowing an external person to come in and have. So there was just some concerns brought to me by some folks on council and what this language could mean for the power of this position, which is not normal. And additionally, one other area that's noted in here is that we are actually mandating another position, which is a deputy person, and we have decided not to do that in other areas except for where the mayor is concerned. So I just want to bring that up for discussion because that was brought to my attention after we approved this, that language could be problematic down the road.
I'm not following you at all.
What's that?
I need you to restate all that, because I didn't follow you at all.
So in the language we approved, the internal auditor, the power that was given to them allows them, one, to subpoena anybody in the city they want. And typically that's a power that the city council would be given, is the subpoena, not an independent person to subpoena an employee or a department. It also gives them, outside of financial records, they could request any HR record they wanted. And in which case could lead into, we talked about this with the union reps and some of the negotiation things, and we talked about that in a whole different section of what that authority could look like in different topic. But just the overall power of this position could be a concern in the way that we approve.
Well, if I could
Yeah.
respond. The language that you're talking about actually came from the Detroit Charter and for their internal auditor that they have. And I think if you're going to empower someone to do an audit, I think there was some misunderstanding as to what the scopes of the audits are. You know, we talked about financial audits and then performance audits. And I think people were focusing on the performance piece being that they could go in and audit a director of a department. The performance audit, it's a term of art that's used, and it means looking at the department as a whole.
Right.
Are there any efficiencies that can be generated, and how do they interact with other departments, et cetera? The focus is not on going after a particular individual. And these are fairly standard reviews that are done throughout the industry.
Well, I think the other one and again, just the language and the way it's stated could be not necessarily that clear. The other part that says they may enter and inspect premises within the control of any agency during business hours. So any council member would have to open their office and let them come into their space for an inspection at any time during business hours.
Well, I think they're there to.
That's the concern
To
that's being
do an
brought.
audit.
Right.
You know, they have to have access to certain places and records to be able to do a complete audit. And again, I think the way this thing was structured was that at, the beginning of the year, or at the beginning of the fiscal year and in the middle of the fiscal year, it's going to be the mayor and council coming together saying,
What they're gonna audit.
these are the audits we want done. And so I think that gives it the oversight in terms of kind of controlling that. And, both parties can hire, or both parties can fire the auditor
Right.
as well. So they have that authority. In terms of the hiring aspect, it's mandatory. You could change it to may hire, but if they do hire, it shall be a certified public accountant.
And I realized the reasoning for that was because we would go a period of time without, right? So it kind of gave you the backfill of that, so I get it.
Yeah.
We just don't have any other position mandating in the charter. And I don't know if that should be, or if that's better served as ordinance, that the council
Well,
can
if
then.
you leave it may, the ordinance, or the article requires that an
That ordinance
ordinance be
be-
created.
right.
And then they could deal with it that way. Commissioner Washington,
I would be more comfortable with May.
okay.
Would you be more comfortable what?
With May rather than shall.
All right, let's get.
And I'm bringing this to attention just of conversations I had. I'm suggesting I like the may as well. I want to be sure that before we put this into what we're sending off, that we are thinking of all the potential creeks.
It would be new 7-,
6.
Um,
So it says the internal auditor shall provide a finance direct, oh, I'm sorry.
Let's see.
I'm
And number
confused.
4,
So can you
401.
Tell me what page you're on. And may I just ask, Commissioner Dow, didn't you vote for this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'm in agreement. I think once we approved this, though, people were reviewing it, and some of the language came back, and there were some concerns after we had done it. And I think that's our job, is to hear that and bring it back up.
I'm not, point of clarification, tell me where you are, because
Okay,
I don't know
it's
the
gonna
may and
be-
shall that you're talking about.
What we
Thank you.
just passed, if you go to section, well, it's going to be Article.
Page 30.
Page 30?
The bottom.
Yep, the point 4, the internal auditor shall appoint a deputy director.
So it would be shall, I think the motion is to amend it to remove shall and insert may. So the internal auditor may appoint a deputy during the and then, I thought it said, yes, that would be it. Commissioner Lopez.
You know, we talk a lot about having the proper staff to do the work that needs to be done. And again, if we go to May, and in May, it doesn't mean they may do it or they may not. So if you have shall, at least if they can't do it because of financial circumstances, there would be a rationale not to comply or not to follow the charter. So I think that we need to give council, the tools to really work and get their work done. I think May is kind of just, yes or no, it's up to you. If you indicate shall, that means that the charter requires this. I think it would be a stronger charter than using the word may.
Anybody making a motion or any further discussion? Was it supported?
But,
To change it to May.
oh,
Then moved and supported. Go ahead, Commissioner Lopez.
no, so the motion is to change it to May?
To May, yeah.
I won't vote for that, no.
Okay. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
No.
It passes. Thought there were two that voted. All right, roll call. Or two that voted yes, I think.
Yeah, that's what
It was denied, I'm sorry.
it was,
Yeah,
okay, so do we have to
sorry.
do roll call?
You want a roll call? I think it was 7-2. Opposed. Okay. All right. Moving on to, under old business B, election of officers. We also have a memo.
These numbers are not lining up. Let me pull this other one here. Not either. So I have on page 41 a memo about transition from staggered elections and odd even elections. Is that what you want to review?
We're talking about the odd even year.
That's page 35 in the packet. 33 is the draft and
It's
35
the-
is null.
I have a 41 for the memo. Okay, I get it, but we're working off two set of documents here.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, that's my issue. All right, let me, thank you. So 35 on the fresh one.
Okay.
Okay, odd even elections, election timing, and ancillary matters. So, there was some discussion, at the end of last meeting about a request to discuss, whether the Charter Commission wants to, revise the charter to move away from the current odd municipal elections to even year municipal elections. And then There was some other discussion on election timing in terms of moving away from staggered elections to everyone being elected at once, and then just some other ancillary matters to consider given some of the changes that have been made. So digest this memo in kind of a few different parts. So the first section is actually pointing out not the odd-even issue, but if you maintain odd elections. There was some discussion about this language at 2-101.3 stating that there'll be 4 vacancies and that the 4 qualified candidates receiving the highest number of votes shall be elected to a term for 2 years. And then in 2029, everyone shall be elected to a 4-year term. So there needs to be some more clarity to this language, and the manner of what this all says is going to depend on how you sort of decide some of the other election matters. If you want to maintain the odd-even election, we do have some proposed language here, but we think it just makes sense to be very clear as to which wards are up for election, which is still the current process, just so it's very clear when it comes. So one of the issues we found is that the purpose of the old language before what you're currently looking at, 2-101, I think appeared to be to establish the staggered elections, but it also said that it referenced there being at-large council members. But through a couple of the changes, there had actually been a removal of all reference to at-large council members. So we think that this language at 2-101.3 is really should state specifically how the council is composed and whether you have, ward and odd and at large. So it says membership of the city council shall be comprised of 1 member elected from each ward and 2 members elected at large. So however you decide on all the other election issues, there should be a statement about them being ward and being at large if that's how you keep things, in place. So that's what we recommend for point 3. And then for a transition plan, just to spell it out very specifically, so keeping odd elections, it would be in 2027, there'd be elections for council members for Ward 1 and Ward 3 and 2 at-large members, and that would be for a 2-year term each. And then in 2029 and every 4 years after, everyone's up for election, and that includes the mayor, the city clerk, and the 7 members of city council. And then the terms of the offices are governed by 2-101, which says that they're 4-year terms. Again, there's that shorter term for some of the provisions in 2027 to get everyone onto that 2029 cycle. That's if you want to keep it odd. If you want to keep it even, if you look at section 2, we provided some background on what the law is on going to an even election. State law does allow that move. It actually has to be by a resolution of the city council to do that, and there are certain parameters for when and what they have to do. But there are some cities that have, through a charter revision or through a charter amendment, have used their charter to say, city council, you are going to pass this resolution on these sorts of terms and conditions. So if you want to move to even year elections and you want to use the charter revision as a mechanism to do that, we have provided some proposed language for that. And this is taken from some of these other recent changes that have done that in the past, I'd say maybe 15 years. We still have to deal with the issue of you're still moving away from staggered elections, and then we still have to be clear of, you have some ward and some at large. So if you want to move to the even elections, we do have some proposed language that's on the bottom of 37 and going on to 38, and it's to encompass sort of all of the changes that have been voted in so far. So again, it would be looking at point 3, membership to the city council shall be comprised of 1 member elected from each ward and 2 elected at large. Then there does have to be a change. If you recall, one of the transition languages, provisions we talked about was apportionment of 5 wards. That language that was adopted had specified that the apportionment had to happen in time for the 2029 election. If you're going to move to an even year, you're not going to vote in 2029, and so the idea is to have that all done in time for an even year election, and we propose 2030. I'll get to why in a second. And then the transition election plan. Again, this was a provision we had sort of taken out, if you recall the language, something like first year after the charter, which we didn't, the language that had existed at that time wasn't fitting what was happening here, but given sort of all the proposed changes that you are all looking at, we do think it just makes sense to spell this all out in a transition section, and so we did draft one here. So here's the proposal, which would be in point 1, it would be in 2027, so having, and actually, let me, before I get into this, so if you switch to even years, when can you start? The way that the law is worded is that when the city council passes the resolution to make the change, they have to do it before January 1 of the year in which it's to take effect. Because everything, if this is all working to plan, and this, assuming this goes to election in November, the charter's not going to be effective until January 1. They're practically speaking not going to have that resolution done by January 1 of 2026. So that takes 2026 out of the ability to do an even year. So the earliest you're looking at is 2028 or 2030. Recall that with the move away from staggered elections, we were marching toward 2029 because you all have a bunch of people up for election right now that will be serving until 2029. So if you do it in 2028, you have this weird situation where you still have people in office and you're trying to reapportion wards and things. So we do recommend 2030, which would do two things. First of all, under the state law, when you have individuals who are already serving a term and then you switch from an odd to an even year elections, the state law does allow for an extension of that term for that additional year to get you through to sort of switching to the even. So that would mean, and what this proposal has is for the individuals that would be up for election now and would start their term in January 1, 2026, it would be a 5-year term. Then for the other half of the people that would be up for election, and we still have this as odd, be up for election in 2027, instead of serving a 2-year term to get that stagger, it would be a 3-year term to get to 2030. And then by 2030, and every 4 years after, everyone is on an even cycle, non-staggered election, everyone up. So that's our proposal. We think it's the cleanest way to take care of all of these things you want to deal with without having to deal with, redrawing wards and having some existing wards and non-existing wards, and just accounting for the fact that you do have a cycle of people that are going through election now. So that is the matter with that. And then finally, we did point out, and this is on 4, and we can talk about it more in detail, but there is we kind of identified, I guess, an issue, for lack of a better word, for the situation in which you are appointing board members. So we're not talking council, we're talking Article 5 boards. The language that we put into the charter has a time frame for when the Ward 5 ward people would have their term up, and then every 4 years later. Well, that language is 2029. Which the earliest possible time that you're going to have a Ward 5, based on the other language that's worded, is 2029. And I think there's a concern that we want to make sure that we aren't creating a situation where you have just a blank seat for a while. So what we did to try to resolve that was to put in sort of a fail-safe that to the extent that that seat is up, that is going to be a Ward 5 seat, but Ward 5 doesn't exist yet, that the appointing authority could appoint from at-large, because functionally, that is sort of an at-large seat now that's going to be sort of changing to a ward. So that's how we kind of thought to alleviate that issue and prevent any situation of having overly long vacancy. So what do you want to talk about first? It seems to make the most sense to answer any questions you have, but if you want to move to even year elections, it's sort of, as a policy matter, do you want to move to even year? And then we can kind of tackle some of the more specific stuff.
Commissioner Boyd.
I have two questions. First, in 9-302, apportionment of 5 wards, under point 2, it says the city council shall adopt the apportionment plan at least 120 days prior to the primary election. That'd be in whenever we decide it is, whether it's 29 or 30. I don't like 120 days. I don't think it's enough time. And I think what we're looking at here is long range, and I think it would be possible for the council to have that new apportionment plan in place at the beginning of the year, or 6 months. I mean, I think 3 months is not enough time. As a person who ran for office citywide, I spent a lot more than 120 days on my campaign. So I would like to
Just
see.
a point of clarification,
I would like to
120
see
days is 6 months.
What?
4 months,
Four
not
months,
not 90
4
yet.
months. Yeah, I think it should be longer than 120 days. Secondly, I have a question on 9-303, the election transition plan. Kristen, all 4 of those things are related to an even number election, an even year election, correct? Thank you.
Correct.
Commissioner Kui.
Now, the question I had was on page 39, that new part about being appointed authority. That only takes place if we accept it, change it to even. If we keep it as odd, that doesn't go in effect, am I correct?
No, it's actually an issue that currently exists because you created a 5th ward.
But as far as the time-wise on that, even if we kept it as an odd number, I thought that would take effect in 2027, not 2029. If this is adopted.
No, it's because the way, if you look at, and I don't think, did I copy all of it? So for Article 5 for selection of board members, they are selected every year, at least that's how it's provided, is that there's always 2, I think it's always 2 up every year. So we didn't have to change any dates as it pertained to when those terms expired for boards, but I unless I'm missing something, I don't believe we have to change the years for the selection of the 5th ward. It's just making sure that someone can select that 5th ward in a situation where there's not yet a 5th ward to select from.
So if we kept it odd years, you still would need that language there as a backdrop?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. And I did want to clarify one other thing, Commissioner Boyd. You had asked about 9-303. So on page 38, 9-303, election transition plan, that is for the even year selection. If you want to keep odd year, you have to look at page 36, and that is a 9-303 for odd year. Which, again, it would still specify who's up for election in 2027 and that it's for 2 years, and then it just says beginning in 2029, everyone's all going up for election at once for 4 years. Yep.
Commissioner Dowd.
So I thank you for this. This is super helpful. I think that was the confusion of like who's up when last time we were meeting. So this really spells things out. It also tied in parts that we didn't talk about last time, which was the mayoral, the clerk, like how does that happen? And that answers that question now. That moves them to a 5-year term if elected this year, essentially. I think that makes sense. I like the idea of moving to the even number years and putting this all together. We've talked about some of the pros and cons. I still support that. I think the pros outweigh the cons. I think we've got an opportunity. The one thing I would call out that we've talked about is big money running a campaign. And if you're running in a year that, a major campaign is happening, you're going to spend more money naturally. So that doesn't really fit what we've talked about as far as campaign finance. But I do think our moving to this model, I support the even number, and I appreciate and I like the layout of this transition plan for it.
Commissioner Washington.
I just need a little, a little clarification. So we have the mayor and the clerk and 2 at-large and 2 wards right now. So I understand that everybody will have a 5-year term. However, so are you saying so the 5 wards and the 2 at-large wouldn't happen until 2030?
That is correct.
Ooh.
Yeah. And it is a long time. The issue is, again, when you're having to have these elections and you have a 5th ward, it's not like you can just plop a 5th ward in. The way the apportionment happens is all of the lines are redrawn. And so it's really hard functionally to have, like, a sitting ward member of Ward 1, and then you have a Ward 5, or you might still have people that are sitting and still serving for Ward 1, and if it's reapportioned, their lines are all redrawn, from where they were elected. But yeah, that is a downside to this, is it's going to take a while to get to the point where Ward 5 would happen.
Okay, so we're electing 2 at-large this year. So the 2 that are already sitting will run in 2027, and then they will all run in 2030?
Yeah, so
Okay.
with the idea that you're losing
only
one
gonna
of the
get-
ward, sorry, not ward, you're losing one at-large.
2 at-large.
Or, yes, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Other discussion? Is there any motions? Commissioner Kui.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the language on 36, the proposed language for Section 2, 101.3 with that change you put in there, and then Section 9, 303.1 and 2.
Is there support? It's been moved and supported. Discussion. Commissioner Lopez.
So that's for odd years, right?
Make it an odd year election.
Okay. And if we go odd years, it'll be the same election cycle as we now have.
Yes.
If we go even numbers, then everybody runs at the same time. Right?
Mhm.
Correct.
We're gonna run at the same time anyway.
Yeah, everybody runs at the same time, and there's no odd year elections. I just want to get clear what we're voting on.
Yep.
So,
Commissioner Kui.
okay,
The way I read this, beginning in 2029, they still would all run at the same time. It just would be on odd years.
Correct.
So if you read point 2, page 36, beginning at the time and 4 years thereafter, all of them would be up at the same time. We're just keeping the election cycle on odd years.
and odd years is when you have the governor running,
No.
no, when you have everybody but the governor and,
No.
You have, in an,
okay.
Go ahead. Commissioner Kui.
in an odd year, it'd be like this year. So you don't have the governor running, you don't have the U.S. Senate running, you
Just
have
local.
the municipal elections.
Municipal elections,
Correct,
only.
yes. And if you go to an even year, then you have the big elections. You either have the president and/or the governor and/or a U.S. Senate race, like next year, we have a governor and a U.S. Senate race. And everybody else. Supreme Court, State House.
So it means that we would have more elections on odd years electing than even years.
Commissioner Boyd.
Right now, we're in the middle of an election cycle. And so we have we're in an odd year, and when Lansing voters go to vote in August and in November, they will be voting essentially for just city elections. They will not be voting for any of the other offices that are electable. In an even number year, they will vote for everybody that's on the ballot, and everybody will include the president and/or the governor, a U.S. Senate race, state boards of education, state legislators. Next year, it'll be Senate and House. Sometimes it's just House. You'll be voting for Supreme Court races. You'll be voting for university boards, and you'll be voting for city elections.
Yeah, everyone.
Now, may I continue?
Yeah.
As our chair pointed out at the last meeting, we have nonpartisan elections. All the things that I mentioned that would be on an even year ballot are partisan elections. So the city offices would be way down ballot. And I will be voting against this for 2 reasons. One, I understand that you get more people voting in an even-numbered year, but there is ballot fall-off. And the city, would be way down ballot. We would be on the 3rd page of a ballot. if we go to an even year. I'm not for that. I understand that more people vote in an even-numbered year, but I have worked at the Secretary of State's office. I have followed state elections. I know there is ballot fall-off. It's a fact of life. Secondly, if a candidate runs in an even vendors for materials, for yard signs, for brochures, for door-to-door matters, and those are all going to cost more money. Simple, because the demand is there. And they probably won't ever have a chance to get on TV if they wanted to get on TV. I will be voting against it. I understand why people like an even-numbered election year, but I do not think it works for the city of Lansing, and I will be voting against it.
Well, right now, we're voting for odd years. I mean, that's the motion, right?
Yes.
So.
The motion is for an odd year, and it's been
yeah,
supported. I have supported it.
Yeah.
Commissioner Anderson.
Just a couple things. One is, when I do my math in my head, if this takes effect in 2030, this will never be on a presidential election cycle, because that will be 2028, 2032, and we'll be doing 2030, and then every 4 years from there. Also, I think that we have very clear data on voter turnout on odd years versus even years, but we don't have any clear data on fall off. We have your experience, but we don't have any actual local data that's been provided that I'm aware of. And so we're just assuming that it wouldn't be good for Lansing. We don't actually know that. I've made it clear, I think in the last meeting, that I am for moving our elections to even years, and so I won't be supporting this motion, but I just wanted to add those thoughts.
Other discussion? Okay, hearing none. Clerk, call vote, please. The motion is to adopt the language found on page 36, 2-101.3, as well as Article 9-303.1 and .2, which would effectively make it an odd-year election. Clerk will call the roll.
Point of clarification, so a yes vote is a vote to keep it to an odd year,
Yes.
and a no vote is to consider something else. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, Commissioner Anderson,
No.
Commissioner Bauer,
Yes.
Commissioner Boyd, Commissioner Dowd, Commissioner Lopez, Commissioner Jeffries,
Yes.
Commissioner Coe,
Yes.
Commissioner Washington,
No.
Commissioner Adam Simon.
Yes.
5 yeas, 4 nays. The motion is adopted.
Okay. Then there would also be a motion on page 39, I believe, the language for 9-302, Jesus, sorry, .4. There's someone who wants to make that motion? Then moved, is there support? Then moved and supported, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, passes. Okay, I think that takes care of all of the old business, A through D. Onto the new business. We had 2 commissioners submit questions that they wanted to reconsider in terms of the charter review. We'll take up this would, I have. 42. And the first one was offered by Vice Chair, and I would turn this over to her and let her move forward with her.
Yes, Commissioner. I submitted a revision for 2-410, the charter revision question. And my statement was that the question whether there should be a general revision of the city charter shall be submitted to the voters of the city of Lansing at the November general election held in 2041 and every 16 years thereafter, and may be submitted at other times in the matter provided by law.
You're moving.
Yes, I move.
Is there support? Moved and supported. Any discussion, questions, anyone? Okay, call the roll, please. Or Commissioner
Wait,
Boyd,
wait, wait.
sorry.
I would like you to read that one more time because I was talking to Commissioner Lopez.
That's
I'm
fine.
sorry.
The question of whether there shall be a general revision of the city charter shall be submitted to the voters of the city of Lansing at the November general election held in 2041 and every 16 years thereafter, and may be submitted at other times in the matter provided by law.
Commissioner Bauer.
And I will say that I voted initially against this, against putting it on the ballot. This is something that I've thought a lot about since then, and I think this, I'm going to support this. I think it should go back on so that people have a chance for a general review and revision if they so choose. So just explaining that this is an example where I have thought about this and changed my initial interpretation or vote.
Any questions, concerns? Commissioner Washington? Did you have it? No? And Vice Chair? Anything else? Okay, would please do the roll call on this, please.
Okay, Commissioner Bauer,
Yes.
Commissioner Boyd,
No.
Commissioner Dowd, Commissioner Jeffries.
Yes.
Commissioner Lopez.
Yes.
Commissioner Coe.
Yes.
Commissioner Washington. Commissioner Adam Simon.
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson.
Yes.
8 yeas, 1 nay.
Second amendment we had came from Commissioner Washington regarding all wards. Commissioner Washington.
I would just like, in light of the fact that we have data now that shows that our population is increasing and it will continue to increase, that some of our areas, I will state again, have no voice in this city, and I would like to offer as a compromise 7 wards and 2 at large. And I would just like the language that reflects 5 wards and 2 at large to be changed to 7 and 2.
So if there's, is that a motion? Yes.
Second.
It's been moved and supported, and so if I understand the motion, you are asking for a total of 9 council members, 7 ward, 2 at.
Yes, and I do want to add the fact that I have spoken to several council members now upon this, and I will tell you, Garza, Cost, Hussein, and Spatafor, and they are all fine with 7 and 2. And the new city hall is actually being set up for 9 council people. And I just think as we are adding thousands of people into our new units, that it is a good time to do it. Thank you.
Other comments, questions? Commissioner Lopez.
Yeah, I think initially I said that we should have 9 wards, and I said 4 and 5. I should have said 9 wards, and we'll take care of the other later. But that was my initial suggestion, to have 9 wards. I mean, 9 council, 9 council person.
Commissioner Bauer.
My biggest concern with this motion continues to be, which I've had my position from the beginning, which I know is not popular with some people up on this dais, but I feel that we need at-large members, and I think they play an important role. And I'm already looking back, thinking minimizing them 4 to 2. I mean 5-2, but we did that. We moved on. I think that going to 7 and 2 is just something I can't support that. I mean, if we did 9 with 4 and 5, then I could support that, but I don't think there's any, I'm not making that as a motion, by the way, so.
Madam Vice Chair.
For clarification, when you say 4 and 5, you mean 4 wards and, or 5 wards and 4 at large? Yeah, 5 and 4, okay.
Any other? Commissioner Dowd.
Yeah, I'll say I would support the 7 and 2 also. One of the biggest things I've heard since we made the change to 7 wards is the the back cry to us that we're talking about representation in the city and you literally just took a person away from us, right? So now we, whether it's at large or a ward position, we took one council person out of their pocket. So we actually made less accessibility for a citizen to reach the city. So we were insisted that we wanted to go do an odd number, and so we went to 7. And so I think we've had a lot of time to reflect on this. I don't agree that necessarily we need to have more at-large. I think we've heard a lot of comments from the public about being able to talk to their person. Although we've had an ability to have at-large step in as needed, we also know that we've had at-large members who don't show up and aren't as involved because they don't have that isolated district, right? So I think we made a mistake when we went to 7. I think 9 is definitely the route we should be going. I would support the 7 too. I think that's great. I also have talked to several of the council members. This is something that they are all very much, nobody has an opinion that this is a hill that anybody's dying on. They are all put it at 9. That is great. We love 9. So I think that's the primary focus, is getting us out of 7 to 9. And then I do support the 7 and 2. So we do have more direct representation within the community. But going down to 7, I think, was a poor decision for us.
Other comments? Commissioner Lopez.
I guess that, for me, it's really not what the current council people think. It's what we think is best for the future of Lansing. We cannot stay with the same thoughts and think that this is going to work 10 years from now, 20 years from now. So whatever we decide, let's think about the future. Understanding the present, but we need to move forward with a charter that's going to be helpful to council, to the mayor, and more importantly, to the public. So I like to see, we make a decision either way. I like to say that that's a decision for the future, not for what is people think now. So I can support 5-4 or 7-2, either way. But, we have to think of the future. Thank you.
Commissioner Cui.
Okay, I just want to make sure I word this right. First of all, you said you could support 5-4 or 7-2. That is a big disparity. And in going by what you said, I think it's a disservice to say that our at-large members do not do their job. I'm just, the perception of what, I'm talking to Ben. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to what Ben said. Okay, and just saying they represent all of our community. And they have been doing, we got bad apples even in wards. Okay, and they have been representing our community very well. And to, again, I just feel it's like crapping on them to keep saying that they don't, because one bad apple doesn't change a bushel. So we have individuals both ways that have not done their job, and they shouldn't be re-voted in. But I think that it's imperative that we keep the makeup of our at-large members and to keep itching away, and I just don't agree with that myself.
I'd like to make a comment. I still am where I was when I began, and that is very supportive of the at-large members because of what they bring to the table. I totally disagree with the idea that they don't show up. I mean, the 12 years that I served on this council, they did show up, and they were there. My biggest concern with losing the combination of votes that we have with the at-large ward mix is that people are going to be disenfranchised. Votes are going to be taken away from folks. So if you look at, 7-2, or if you look at 4-4, the way it is right now, every individual voter votes for 5 council members. You get to vote on the majority of the council makeup. When we changed it to 5-2, you've lost 2 votes. You don't get to vote for the majority of the council makeup anymore. And, if I'm someone there that's looking at this saying, geez, do I want to support this? Am I going to say, yeah, I don't mind losing, votes, and I don't mind losing, this ability to have the access, because when I vote for all of these folks, they're responsible to me. They should be, politically. And if we're going to go to a 7-2, that even stretches it further. Now, if you talk 5-4, you're getting back there. You get to vote for 4 at large and 1 of your council members, your ward council member. You're now voting, you're back to the majority. And I think, that issue to me about disenfranchising people losing voters and losing access that way, I just can't support that. And I think that will be a detriment to getting this revised charter passed. If people sit down and they realize what this means to their vote and their say in city government, I think it's going to be a detriment to that. 5-4 doesn't do that. So, Commissioner Anderson.
I think this is an issue that, I don't think that the 9 of us will come to a consensus that we all feel comfortable walking away with. That's just my honest opinion. I think that whether I get to vote for 5 city council people or 2 city council people or 3 or 4, regardless, everyone sitting at that dais, they still are responsible to me as a citizen. Whether they are my ward representative or at large, or I voted for them or I didn't, I still feel like they have a duty to the city of Lansing and all of the residents regardless. But I think that there being more wards allows for the city council person responsible for that ward to be able to reach more constituents within that area, and be able to hear issues that maybe we're not hearing on a regular basis or don't have access to on a regular basis because we're not able to tap into a lot of the people within our community. And so I personally I'm not in support of 5-2. I'm not in support of 5-4. 7-2 is great. It doesn't have to be 7-2, but 5-2 and 5-4 I'm not in support of personally. And that is from my own research, from my own personal lived experiences, from hearing from the community, and I would say 80% of the people that I've heard from sitting on this dais and out in the community have expressed that they're looking for more representation, not with their vote, but from a city council person who reflects them and their area that they live in. And so those are just my thoughts on the issue.
Other comments? Commissioner Washington.
I will stand by when you have 4 council members that are at large. They can all be from the same neighborhood and have been. So really, that ward is getting 5 council members. I will say I am acutely aware, because I am in these neighborhoods. We have neighborhoods that have never had proper representation, even when Brian and I were on council. They're too big. It's too hard. They're neighborhoods people don't really want to go into. And they deserve a voice. They deserve representation, and we can't do it with the number of wards we have. The people that live closer to them understand their needs better. They understand their backgrounds better, and they understand the struggles that they are dealing with. And when you have people all at large, and you got 4 of them in the same neighborhood, that's problematic. And you have 1 council member trying to do a quarter of the city or a fifth of the city. I wanted 9 wards, no at large. I disagree with people that have 5 council members. No, they don't. Let's be real here. No, they don't. And at the end of the day, I wanted 9 wards. I would compromise at 7-2. I think 5-2 is absolutely reducing representation. I can't even stomach the thought of 5-2. and I was very adamant about it the night it was voted in. I'm adamant that representation for every citizen in our city is a hill I will die on. And I would be willing to do 6-3, but absolutely no less wards and no more at-large than that.
Other comments? Commissioner Lopez.
Yeah, let me just clarify what I said before. I know what I'm going to vote for, and my vote will be for 5-4. But because we are a body, I will respect and accept whatever the majority rules. I only have one vote, and that's what I would vote for. Now, the motion is different, so we'll see what happens. But, you know, we're going to have to live with whatever we decide now.
Any other comments? Madam Vice Chair.
No.
Oh. Commissioner Kui. Anybody else? Commissioner Kui.
I do propose an amendment then, listening to everyone talk and not think that we're closed mind, to put a proposal amendment to make it 5 wards, 4 at large. That's my amendment.
Is there support?
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Discussion? So the motion is, I'm sorry, Commissioner Anderson.
Sorry, I just because I don't ever remember. I thought amendments to motions had to be accepted by the person who, no? Okay. I thought we did that in the past, so I was just truly seeking clarity. Thank you.
Okay. Any other
You vote on
comments,
the amendment
questions?
first, and you vote on the original.
Does everybody understand the amendment is 5 large, 4 at ward, total of 9.
Say that
Or-
again?
5 wards.
5 wards, 4 at large, total of 9 council members.
That's the amendment to her motion.
That is.
She has moved
this-
7-2.
Right. So what will happen is if this passes, then that'll be the main motion that's before the council that would go into the charter.
Need to vote. It's an amendment to her amendment, so we
Yep.
would need 2 votes.
2 votes to get it there. So it's basically the same vote twice. Okay. Commissioner Washington.
Well, what if I want to amend it to 6-3?
You certainly could.
I would like to amend it to 6-3.
Oh, you can't. It would have to be after this vote. The third, there's no third time. Yeah. So, clerk, please call the roll.
Okay, on amending the motion to change it to 5 wards and 4 at large, Commissioner Boyd,
No.
Commissioner Dowd, Commissioner Jeffries.
Yes.
Commissioner Lopez,
Yes.
Commissioner Kui,
Yes.
Commissioner Washington,
No.
Commissioner Adam Simon,
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson,
No.
Commissioner Bauer.
Yes.
5 yeas, 4 nays.
Okay, so before, this is the motions before the body. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none. Clerk will call the roll, please.
Commissioner Dowd.
This is the motion to amend the charter. It's the same motion that we had just voted on, but we had to do it twice because it was an amendment to an amendment. Now we're just an amendment to the charter, so this will put this provision in the charter, if it passes.
Commissioner Jeffries.
Yes.
Commissioner Lopez.
Yes.
Commissioner Kui.
Yes.
Commissioner Washington. Commissioner Adam Simon.
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson.
No.
Commissioner Bauer.
Yes.
Commissioner Boyd.
No.
5 yeas, 4 nays. The motion is adopted.
All right, moving on to the next item is a handout again from our attorney regarding auditor language. I'm sorry, Commissioner Anderson?
And maybe we do this at a later time, but if we're gonna have 9 council seats, do we change our boards to 9 seats as well? So are we gonna do that later?
would ask.
There are going to have to be changes based on just standard language to implement what you just voted on, but that would be another question, which is sort of ancillary, that, yeah, you'd have to discuss whether you want to up that as well.
Chris, or City Clerk?
Nothing necessitates that. When you changed it from 8 to 7, you kept boards and commissions at 8. So going to 9, there's still no requirement.
Right, but we should discuss it at some point, or now, or, I'm just asking, you know.
Yeah, so I guess, Kristen, to you, in terms of being able to make the changes to the charter as we have it, which would reflect this new 9-member makeup, is that something that's going to be done tonight, or do you need to have some time to go through this?
Well, it's, to the clerk's point, the issue of whether you up all your boards and commissions to 9 is a separate issue from the implementation of the fact that you now have 9 council members. So we would need to know that. Anything with a major change like election like this, I want to make sure that we review and we've captured everything. I don't think it will take me long, but I don't want to shoot from the hip on this.
So are you asking for another meeting?
Well, especially if you're going to add additional members to your boards and commissions, then yeah, I think you're going to need one more just to button it all up. But, I mean, unless you want to have me continue to review to see all additional changes that need to be made to implement 5 wards, 4 at large, sitting here tonight.
Well, all right, then let's have a discussion about, what is the feeling in terms of upping the boards and commission members from 8 to 9 to reflect the 9 council member number, or do you want to leave it at 8?
I think that we should leave it at 8.
Okay.
Because we didn't move that number when we voted for 7. We left it at 8 board members. I think it should also be left at 8.
Other comments? Commissioner Boyd? Is that a motion then? Or I don't think we have to.
I don't think we have a motion.
Okay. Is there any other discussion on this issue? Question? No? Okay, Kristen, if we're not moving the board members, can you do the other stuff for tonight in terms of the change in the number of council members?
I can, if you don't need to talk to me, and then I can come back with you with all the changes that need to happen.
How long do you need? We can recess if you need.
Yeah, I mean, that's a possibility if you want to do the additional items, and then we can come back to that later.
Well, why don't we recess, let you do that, then bring back the changes, and then we'll take up your other changes. I mean, can this be done? I mean, there's a couple of things I think we'll have to address separately, but in terms of the edits that you have presented, is that just a single motion?
I think most of that stuff can be sort of like almost like a consent agenda type thing, and if there's
Okay.
issues that the commission really wants to take up separately, then we could.
Okay, all right. How long do you think you'll need?
Why don't you give me 20 minutes?
Okay. We're going to recess for 20 minutes. Commissioner Bauer.
Just to clarify, from a side conversation, my apologies, but we voted to keep odd year elections.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, 20 minutes, and we'll come back. Man, I'd rather get it done tonight. I'd like to call the meeting of the Lansing Charter Commission back to order. As you know, we had a recess to allow time for our attorney to do some updates to the charter. So, Kristen, do you have some comments for us?
Yes, thank you. So I believe Emery brought around a paper that this is the items we identified as being what is sort of required to have its language changed based on the vote that you just had for 9 total members. So there's only 3 sections of the charter that needs to change. So the first one is 2-101.1 in defining who the elective officers are. That would change from 7 to 9 members. Then in 2-101.3, we clarify membership of the city council shall be comprised of 1 member elected from each ward, and instead of 2, it says 4 members elected at large. And then finally, 9-303.2, this is some of the language that you just approved. We just simply need to change the 7 members of city council to 9 members of city council. And those are all of the changes that are required based on the vote you just had.
Anybody have any questions? Okay, if there are no objections, we can approve these as submitted. Commissioner Washington?
I would like to vote on them individually.
I'm sorry?
I would like to vote on them individually.
All right. So with is there a motion for the first one, 2-101.1? It's been moved and supported. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Passes. Second one is 2-101.3. Is there a motion? This is the handout.
This paper.
It's given to you. Is there a motion? It's been moved. Is there support? Been moved. Is there support?
Support.
It's been moved and supported. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Passes with Commissioners Dowd and Washington voting no. And Commissioner, I'm sorry, Anderson as well. And who else? Commissioner Bauer? Okay, I'm sorry, it would be. All right, 9-303.2. It's been moved. Is there support? Been moved and supported. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Same vote count as before. Okay. All right, so those issues are out of the way. The next item that we have is item 8C on the under new business. These are the technical reviews of things that need to be tightened up, and there's some substantive issues. And I guess what I'd ask, Kristen, for you to do is if you could go through the document and let's just deal with the substantive ones that you've identified at this point, and then we can go back and take care of the more of the clerical errors that were found.
Okay. So the first item, the substantive item is 2-101.3, but you've already all just resolved that on elections, so don't need to deal with that. At the bottom of page 45, 2-302.1, if you recall, and if you actually want to, it's on page 55 of your packet. So this goes back to the discussion on forfeiture and removal for cause. And as you recall, there was some language put in about being able to remove elected officials, and then there was a vote again to take that back out. But in reviewing of this, there's some additional language in here, the words elected or, that are still in red, that I think the commission's intent in making its vote to rescind also requires removal of the words elected or. So if you want to make sure that there cannot be a removal for cause of an elected official, my recommendation is that you vote also to strike the words elected or, that's in the red on page 55, the red language.
Is there a motion? Is there support? Been moved and supported. Is there any discussion, concerns? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, it passes.
The The next substantive matter on this list is on page 46. It's 3-207, which I call it a substantive. It's really a typo, but because it's a substantive typo, I point it out. The cross-reference was incorrect, and the cross-reference should read in both, actually, 3-207 and 5-201.2. The cross-reference should go back to 5-103.2. And so that's my recommendation, is that that get corrected to effectuate the intent of what it should be referring back to.
It's been moved and supported. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Those opposed, passes.
Let's see, the next substantive matter. So the next substantive matter is on page 47. It's 7-205.6. This is actually not something that the commission has considered before, but in reviewing this section, there's two sections, .6 and .7, that have the exact same sentence in there, and one of them is redundant. It has to deal with the Board of Review. I'm trying to find the page here. Thank you. So on page 93, if you look at Board of Review. So if you look at .6 at the bottom, it says the Board of Review shall have such powers and duties as may be provided by law. That's good. Then it says the Board of Review shall adopt rules for its conduct of business. And then at .7, it says the Board of Review shall adopt rules for its conduct of business. So I just recommend on .6, just strike that last sentence because you already have it in 7. Yeah.
It's been moved and supported. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, passes.
Next substantive issue is 8-401.3. This was a recommended new addition to the section in Article 8, which deals with, purchasing and things. It was my recollection that the board voted to add a new section to state that the city shall not make a contract with a person who is in default to the city, though I did not see it in the draft. So I just want to bring that up to make sure I remembered that correctly, or if you don't want it, then, just let me know.
Page, it- yeah. It's been added back in there on page 101.
Okay,
Take
all
a
right.
look at that.
Okay. Then if the vote's already been taken, I don't think you have to, okay, great. Article 9, that one's already been dealt with on Chapter 3. And then last item is 9-301. And I think it's just making sure we get the intent of the vote. If you recall, and this is page 105, I believe. Okay, so recall last week we discussed about the effective date of the charter and whether to have it the standard Home Rule Cities Act of when certain things get sent off to where they need to go, or just say the date certain. There was a vote to have the date certain of January 1, 2026. It was my understanding that was going to be a period, end of story, and then strike when filed after adoption with the Secretary of State and the county clerk pursuant to statute. Unless I'm wrong, and you meant to keep both of that in place. It's a clarification.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
So January 1, 2026 should stay.
Yes.
The question is then, the comma after, should there be a period after 2026? Or should there be a comma, and then when filed after adoption with the Secretary of State and the county clerk pursuant to statute? And I will say, when switching over to January 1, 2026, in looking at other charters that pick a date certain, they just pick the date, like Detroit, for example, does that, they just pick the date certain. This is the date, that's it. So that's why I wanted clarification.
Yeah, and I remember talking about that last time, and that's why we left it there, because there were too many other moving pieces, and so it may not, if those things aren't done, the charter can't take effect, even if, so that kind of gives us a time frame to get done.
Okay. So we
I
want,
could be wrong. Go.
I swore that we agreed to strike that out, but I
I
could be.
thought we did as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought we did as well. So without objection, we'll put a period after 2026 and strike all the language thereafter. there any objection to that? Okay, hearing none, that'll be done. And then, Kristen, those are all the substantive ideas or changes that you had pointed out. How do you want to handle the remainder of the items that you have in your memo?
So, and I apologize for the format of this. This was more working notes that I sent along as I was working on this. But these were, as I was, we went back through and reread the entire charter and just caught typos and inconsistencies and just wanted to raise things to people's attention. Some of the formatting issues are really not, they're not substantive. They're just getting people to format it in the correct format for submission, which is really more of a clerk's office function. But there were a couple other things that we pointed out and made recommended changes to that if you have issues with these, we should discuss. But, so, I can go through and give, some of the, I guess, bigger points I'll point out that the board may want to look at and consider is, for example, throughout the charter, the word state law, so like pursuant to state law, it was inconsistent between whether state was capitalized or lowercase, so we just went consistent with lowercase state law. Capitalization, we were just making sure everything was consistent in terms of terms, city clerk, mayor, city attorney, city council, all capitalized, mayor's lowercase, again, to be consistent throughout. Again, these are just more style things. One thing that I'll note that we did not make any changes to, but just raised for your attention, when we're talking about dates, there's some inconsistency with how dates are referenced. So some are, they'll say the first, some will say the first with the parentheses, number 1 ST, some will say the first day of. We did not make any changes, we just note that there's a little bit of inconsistencies there. We don't think it affects meaning, but it depends on how, I guess, persnickety you want to be. And I was persnickety enough to point it out, so no judgment. Everything else in here, I think, is really just formatting or minor typo errors. But I'm happy to answer any questions on any of these that you may have that we haven't discussed.
Commissioner Boyd.
I would just like to revisit something that I mentioned earlier. It's found on page 38 of our packet, 9-302.2, where we say the city council shall adopt the apportionment plan at least 120 days prior to the 2029 primary election, I guess it would be. You know, if this is approved by the voters, the city council has a lot of time to act. And I don't know why we would say they have up until 4 months prior to the primary, because I think people make decisions based on what they know. And I don't understand why it would be cumbersome or onerous for the council to have to approve or adopt an apportionment plan at least 180 days, 6 months prior to the primary. I mean, as people are running for election or thinking about running for election, they're looking at the wards or what their plans are, and I think they need or should deserve more than 4 months, because I certainly decided in November that what I was going to do on this commission, even though the filing deadline wasn't until
If I can clarify, I think the portion you're reading about, we didn't vote on because we kept
didn't
it
vote.
odd number, so that doesn't matter. That was only language proposed for even number changes.
Well, there's still, so
Right.
regardless, there's still an apportionment
No,
language because you're going to a 5th ward, and there's always an apportionment that has to happen after every 10 years.
right.
So,
I
and
know.
This particular was for the even-numbered plan, but it would still apply to
Okay.
an odd-numbered
Okay. I just want to make sure I
plan.
understood where.
But our council tends to sometimes drag its feet, and so I think we should simply say when they should have to approve the apportionment plan, and I think they have plenty of time if this is approved.
Commissioner Boyd.
I guess, point of clarification, you said they should be 180 days.
Well, I throw that out as a minimum, that's 6 months, but, you know, quite frankly, if this is approved by the voters and adopted by the city council in January 2026, and the election isn't until 2029, I
Right.
don't know why they couldn't do it a year before. But I at a minimum, 6 months, but I think they should.
But
have
it's
more.
120 days prior to the 2030.
To the primary.
Primary.
Correct.
No, we
So-
struck out the 30.
So we agreed to keep the odd number election year,
Okay.
so it'd be
So it's
2029. There will be an apportionment plan, because as Kristen has pointed out, we're going to 5 wards. And so I think the council should be asked to approve an apportionment plan sooner than 120 days prior to the primary.
Can you make a motion?
Oh, sure, I'll make a motion.
If I may,
Yeah.
one of the reasons why we left this as is state law requirements on this. And so I understand what you're saying, but we left that language in place to give enough time prior to the primary, but then be consistent with the language of state law. That being said, they could look at doing this sooner.
Sooner.
It's giving a
Drop dead date.
drop dead.
Yeah, so we would say so many days prior to the 2029 primary. And, if the primary is in August, then I would say we should have it done by the 1st of January. So that would be 8 months? 8 months? Am I right? 240 days? Shall we just say, I will move that the city council shall adopt the apportionment plan by January 1st of 2029. That is about 230 days prior to the primary. So move.
Support.
Been moved and supported. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, passes. Okay.
Thank you.
Moving on to the rest, is there other things you want?
I wonder if we can't just make a motion to approve all these as one slate?
Yeah, that's what we're going to, I just
Okay.
didn't know if, Kristen, if you had any other items you wanted to point out. So if there are no objection, we'll just adopt all these other changes that have been brought forward. Chris?
So move.
Wait a second.
With the date format kind of gives an option, so that one kind of needs to be, I think, handled separately, because if you want them to be, if you don't care, then it shouldn't be part of the motion, and if you do care, you need to pick one way and say that they should all be done that way. The date format, whether it's.
All right, we'll come back to
January
that.
1,
Without the
so-
date issue, if there's no objection, we'll go ahead and adopt those changes. So I'm not hearing any objections to that. So as to the date issue, how does the commission want to move forward on that? I mean, just
Motion.
Commissioner Dowd.
At the leisure of our attorney. Whatever you feel looks best.
Support.
I don't think you have to do anything. It's just, so if you want to leave it as is, you're okay with that, that's
Yeah.
fine.
We'll leave it as is.
Spelled out.
I'll support it.
Do we
Spell it
wanna
out.
put-
Oh, Jasmine said spell it
I'm
out.
sorry, go ahead.
I just
Commissioner-
said spelled out. Like the dates.
word?
Yes.
Like FIRST.
Yeah,
Sure.
FIRST instead of the number one, or first with the parents
Yeah.
one, or,
Then you get an inconsistency between full dates, like January 1.
With the exception of full
2020.
dates.
I'm sorry, with the exception of what?
With the exception of a full month, date, year. Does that make sense? So spelled out unless it's January 1,
Oh,
2020,
30.
whatever.
Yeah, yep, I understand.
Does everybody understand that?
So if it's January 1st of each year, it will say January FIRST of each year.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
That's,
But if
I
it's
don't
a
like that
specific
actually.
date- All right.
We could do the little superscript. whatever.
So if everybody's in agreement with that, we will accept that if there are no objections.
What am I agreeing to? That's I'm lost.
Go ahead. Commissioner Cui?
Spell it out, well, not spell it out, but restate the.
Restate your motion.
Can I change my mind?
Sure.
Okay.
I don't know what I'm voting.
We've all done that.
Okay. So if it's a full date with a year, it can just be month, date, year. And then if it's just a date with no year, it can be the number with the, whatever it's called, like the STND. Does that make sense? Okay, I don't know what it's called. So move.
Does everybody understand that? Do you understand? Emery, more importantly, do you get it?
I do.
Good.
Thank you, everybody.
Good. Okay. Commissioner Lopez.
I have a couple of
So
questions, not
if
not with
I
this.
could, if I could.
Yeah.
Is this regarding what?
No.
Okay. So with that, we'll adopt that. No objection. Go ahead.
All right, I just wanted to ask about what we did with the transparency issue. Did we adopt anything for transparency? I was not here at a meeting where that was going to be discussed.
Yeah, we had, there's transparency on the millages and debts.
Operations, yeah, and operations of the
Yeah.
city.
That was it. No, no one brought anything forward on that in terms
No.
of,
They have, their names have to be listed. Their names are public. The
Yeah.
applicants.
yeah.
That's
Oh, yes,
transparency.
yes,
that's
yes.
transparency.
That's in there.
Yes, that's.
Yes, sorry. All right, we've
So we
got
covered that, thank you.
item 8D.
We didn't?
Is the resolution. Everybody take a look at that. This is the resolution that will go, that sets the, yes, 8D, which, last page. And this will be how it's going to be presented to the voters if we get this thing passed through. Is there any questions or discussions on that? Commissioner Washington.
When are we voting if we approve all of the changes?
They've all been approved.
No, when we take the final vote from the commission of who thinks this should go forward and who
Well,
thinks it
that's what
shouldn't.
that's what this is.
Okay, because I'll be
Yeah.
involved.
All right. Any questions? Roll call.
Commissioner Jeffries,
Yes.
Commissioner Lopez,
Yes.
Commissioner Cui. Yes. Commissioner Washington.
No.
Commissioner Adam Simon,
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson.
No.
Commissioner Bauer. Commissioner Boyd.
Yes.
Commissioner Dowd. 6 yeas, 3 nays.
I believe now is the time for public comment.
Okay, we have Linda Appling wishes to address the commission.
Can I just say, I think Linda Appling should get an award. This is her 4th appearance before this commission, so thank you for coming down.
You're out of.
I'm consistent. Well, first of all, I am Linda Appling, and I do live in the city of Lansing. I would like to thank you, each and every one of you, though I don't necessarily agree with all your positions, for the time and effort that you have put in terms of participating in this process. However, I am still concerned about one major area, and that is the Board of Water and Light. You have left this section, as near as I've been able to tell, with virtually no changes. Thus, the citizens of the city do not have any way to make changes to the Board of Water and Light's actions. It makes no sense to leave the citizens locked into whatever provisions the Board of Water and Light make. This is especially important considering we do not have an Attorney General to argue against positions that the Board of Water and Light has taken, or even any rate increases that they propose. We don't have that. The state has that at their particular area. This is important if you look at what happened with the movement of the gas lines from a low-density population to a high-density population. This had a significant impact in terms of minorities because they moved it from a primarily white area to the city of Lansing that has a number of minorities in it. And you can see the little signs up there. And those are the areas that if something happens would be impacted negatively. You don't know what may happen. I don't know. They may be explode or something. But I never liked that, and I still don't like it. And there must be some type of control that the citizens can exercise over the Board of Water and Light.
Thank you very much. And that was our final speaker this evening.
Thank you. Now we're to commissioner remarks. Commissioner Anderson.
I just wanted to say that our very last vote, I didn't take lightly, and it's something that I've really been considering for a while and just going back and forth with myself on my stance over all the work that we've done. And I mentioned last meeting that there are things that we've done that I'm really, really proud of and I'm really supportive of. But there are still some areas of concern for me personally. And so I just don't want the rest of this body to feel like that vote of opposition is against everything that we've done here. And so I just want to make that very clear that we've done some really great work. We've done some work that I just personally don't support. And yeah, I look forward to seeing what's next. So.
Okay. Anyone else? Commissioner Washington.
I will echo that. My biggest contention, and I've been very clear about it, is I felt it was incredibly important, and we had a great opportunity to make sure that this was a charter that worked for everybody, and I do not feel we did that. And I will be honest, I have been very frustrated by the process of this charter commission. This is not what I expected. This is not how I thought it would work. And it's been an incredibly frustrating experience for me, particularly because this doesn't work for everybody. But having said that, I agree there are some good things in here. Not everything is bad. I just really wanted it to work for everyone.
Anyone else? Anyone? Commissioner Lopez.
Yeah, I just want to, well, I agree with the speakers, because we didn't get all that we wanted personally, but this is a collective, so we'll see what the voters say. They have the last word. But I just wanted to make a point that as to the Board of Water and Light, really, the last, defense for the community is the city council. Because the Board of Water and Light doesn't go to the state for rates. They don't go to the civil service or the commission for approval of rates. It's their board and then approved by city council. So I think that there's things that we all need to work on and understand so that we're aware of where the decisions are made. So again, city council is really the place, along with the mayor, that many things need to be, like the buck stops here, That's what it is. And that's why people who run for city council need to understand that. So, we can, and that's why I said, this charter may or may not work for the future. I hope so, but we'll let people decide. And I am proud of the work we have done. Not everybody got what they wanted, but that's the way it goes. Thank you much.
Thank you. Any other comments? Hearing none, we're adjourned.
And for anyone still watching, again, we are not meeting the next 2 weeks. Next meeting is the 24th.
Every year, we try to introduce new third spaces,